The first thing I noticed about my new roommate was the way he carried loneliness like it weighed more than the 2 suitcases dragging behind him. It was a bright Tuesday morning in early September. Sunlight poured through the dormitory windows, painting long golden rectangles across the hallway floor. Students laughed, parents carried boxes, and excitement buzzed through the building like electricity. But the tall guy standing in my doorway looked completely disconnected from all of it. His shoulders were tense. His eyes stayed fixed on the ground. And when our gazes finally met, there was something there that stopped me cold. Not anger. Not fear. Defeat. The kind of defeat that comes from trying for a very long time and failing every single time. Before we begin, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Storyverse if you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life. Stories like this remind us that sometimes one person can make all the difference. The guy slowly stepped into the room and dropped his bags beside the empty bed. Then, without introducing himself, without even pretending to be excited about the new semester, he glanced around and quietly said that nobody could stand him. Most people would have laughed awkwardly. Some would have ignored the comment. But something in his voice made me answer honestly. Maybe you just hadn't met me yet. For the first time, he looked directly at me. His expression didn't change. He didn't smile. He didn't seem hopeful. But for a brief second, I saw surprise. As if nobody had ever responded that way before. His name was Corbin Hale. Mine was Rowan Mercer. At the time, neither of us knew that a simple conversation inside a tiny college dorm room would change both our lives forever. The first few weeks were strange. Corbin wasn't rude. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't messy. In fact, he was probably the easiest roommate anyone could ask for. Yet there was something unusual about him. He kept everyone at a distance. He left early every morning. He returned late every evening. He ate alone. Studied alone. Walked alone. Lived alone. Whenever groups formed in class, he somehow ended up by himself. Whenever students gathered in common areas, he found another route. People weren't openly cruel to him. They simply avoided him. And I couldn't understand why. One afternoon, while sitting outside the library beneath a large oak tree, I finally started hearing the rumors. Some students said Corbin was weird. Others claimed he was arrogant. A few insisted he thought he was smarter than everyone else. But when I asked for actual examples, nobody had any. The stories were vague. Contradictory. Built entirely on assumptions. The more people talked about him, the more confused I became. Because the person they described wasn't the person I knew. The Corbin I lived with quietly helped strangers pick up dropped books. The Corbin I knew stayed up late tutoring classmates who barely acknowledged him afterward. The Corbin I knew left encouraging notes for exhausted students during exam week without signing his name. Yet nobody seemed to notice. Or maybe nobody wanted to. One evening, I returned from class and found him sitting alone by the window. The sunset painted orange streaks across the room. For a long time neither of us spoke. Then I asked him why he thought people disliked him. He stared outside. For several seconds I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke. The story began years earlier. New schools. New towns. A father constantly moving between jobs. A childhood filled with introductions that never lasted. Friendships that disappeared before they could grow. Every time he started over, he became quieter. Every time he became quieter, people misunderstood him. Every misunderstanding pushed him further inward. By high school, the pattern had become permanent. People assumed he was unfriendly. So they avoided him. Being avoided made him even quieter. Which convinced people he didn't like them. The cycle repeated endlessly. Listening to him, I realized something heartbreaking. Corbin wasn't lonely because he hated people. He was lonely because he expected rejection before anyone had the chance to accept him. And expectations have a strange way of becoming reality. Weeks turned into months. Autumn arrived. Leaves covered the campus paths in brilliant shades of gold and red. Slowly, little things began changing. I invited Corbin to join me at lunch. At first he refused. Then he accepted once. Then twice. Soon it became normal. People started seeing him through my eyes. Not as the mysterious guy everyone avoided. But as an actual person. A funny person, surprisingly. A thoughtful person. A loyal person. The transformation wasn't dramatic. It happened quietly. One conversation at a time. One shared meal at a time. One small moment at a time. Yet despite the progress, there was still a sadness inside him that never fully disappeared. Sometimes I'd catch him staring into space. Sometimes he'd stop talking mid-sentence. Sometimes he'd look at groups of laughing friends with an expression that broke my heart. Like someone standing outside a warm house during winter. Close enough to see the light. Too afraid to knock on the door. Then came the event that changed everything. Near the middle of October, our university announced a volunteer project. A severe storm had damaged several neighborhoods outside the city. Hundreds of homes needed repairs. Students were encouraged to help. I signed up immediately. After some convincing, Corbin agreed to come too. The following Saturday, buses carried dozens of volunteers to the affected community. The destruction was worse than I expected. Broken roofs. Flooded homes. Destroyed fences. Families trying to rebuild what the storm had taken. Everyone spread out to different tasks. Corbin and I were assigned to help an elderly woman named Miriam. Her small house had suffered extensive damage. The porch was collapsing. Several windows were shattered. Parts of the roof remained exposed. Despite everything, Miriam greeted us with a smile. The kind of smile that survives hardship. The kind of smile that says hope still exists. For hours we worked under the bright afternoon sun. Hammering boards. Carrying supplies. Replacing damaged sections. The work was exhausting. Yet something remarkable happened. Corbin came alive. Not socially. Not dramatically. But naturally. For the first time, I saw him stop worrying about how others perceived him. He focused entirely on helping. And people noticed. Whenever someone needed assistance, Corbin was there. Whenever a problem appeared, he solved it. Whenever a volunteer became overwhelmed, he stepped in. By evening, students who had barely spoken to him before were thanking him. Laughing with him. Including him. It should have been a happy ending. But life rarely changes that easily. A week later, disaster struck. An expensive laboratory project on campus was sabotaged. Equipment worth thousands of dollars was damaged. The university launched an investigation. Rumors spread instantly. And somehow, incredibly, suspicion landed on Corbin. The accusation made no sense. Yet people were eager to believe it. Old assumptions returned overnight. Whispers filled hallways. Students avoided him again. The fragile progress he'd made collapsed within days. I watched the change happen. His shoulders lowered. His eyes avoided contact. His confidence disappeared. One evening I found him packing a suitcase. At first I thought he was going home for the weekend. Then I realized something was wrong. He wasn't packing for a trip. He was leaving. Transferring. Giving up. He believed the rumors would never stop. Believed people would never truly accept him. Believed he was destined to spend his life alone. That night became one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. I told him what I saw. Not the version created by gossip. The real version. The one who spent weekends helping strangers. The one who stayed up tutoring classmates. The one who carried everyone else's burdens while silently carrying his own. I reminded him that one accusation couldn't erase who he was. I reminded him that character matters more than rumors. Most importantly, I reminded him that he wasn't alone anymore. For a long time he sat quietly. Then he unpacked the suitcase. A few days later the truth emerged. Security footage revealed the real culprit. A different student had damaged the equipment while attempting to cover up a mistake. Corbin was completely innocent. Official apologies followed. The rumors disappeared. But the experience left scars. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Winter arrived. Snow covered campus pathways. Holiday lights glowed from dormitory windows. Life slowly returned to normal. Yet something had changed inside Corbin. Not because people finally accepted him. Because he had begun accepting himself. The difference was subtle but powerful. He no longer apologized for existing. No longer shrank to make others comfortable. No longer assumed rejection before giving people a chance. And strangely enough, the more comfortable he became with himself, the easier it became for others to connect with him. Confidence isn't loud. Sometimes confidence is simply deciding you deserve a place in the room. By spring semester, Corbin's transformation was undeniable. He joined study groups. Attended events. Made friends. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Just a few genuine friendships. And those mattered far more. One afternoon, nearly 8 months after we first met, we returned to Miriam's neighborhood for another volunteer project. The changes were incredible. Homes restored. Gardens blooming. Children playing outside. Hope visible everywhere. Miriam recognized us instantly. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged both of us. Then she said something I'll never forget. She told Corbin that the day he helped repair her home was the day she stopped feeling abandoned. She explained that after the storm, she had believed nobody cared. Then strangers arrived. Especially one quiet young man who worked harder than anyone else. A young man who listened. Who helped. Who stayed long after others left. A young man who reminded her that kindness still existed. As she spoke, I watched Corbin's face. For years he had measured his worth through other people's opinions. Now he was seeing the truth. His existence had mattered all along. Not because everyone liked him. Not because everyone accepted him. But because he had positively changed lives without even realizing it. Months later graduation approached. The campus buzzed with excitement and uncertainty. Students prepared for new jobs, new cities, and new chapters. On our final evening as roommates, Corbin and I sat outside watching the sunset. The same kind of sunset that had filled our dorm room on one of our earliest conversations. This time, however, everything felt different. The lonely stranger who had entered my room months earlier was gone. In his place sat someone stronger. Someone healed. Someone hopeful. As the sky turned gold, he admitted something. When he first met me, he had expected our friendship to last a few weeks. Maybe a month. He assumed I would eventually grow tired of him like everyone else. Instead, I had stayed. And because one person stayed, he found the courage to stay too. Not just at the university. In life. In relationships. In hope. That realization hit me harder than I expected. Because the truth is, we rarely understand the impact we have on others. A simple act of kindness. A conversation. A moment of patience. A decision to see someone beyond their reputation. These small things can alter the course of a life. Graduation day arrived bright and beautiful. Families filled the stadium. Cameras flashed. Names echoed across loudspeakers. When Corbin walked across the stage, applause erupted from every direction. Friends stood. Classmates cheered. Professors smiled. For a brief moment, I remembered the young man who had once believed nobody could stand him. If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Storyverse. Your support helps keep meaningful stories alive and allows more people to discover messages of hope and kindness. Years later, after graduation, life carried us in different directions. Different cities. Different careers. Different responsibilities. But some friendships never truly fade. One spring afternoon, I received a letter. Inside was a photograph. Corbin stood beside a group of teenagers at a community mentoring center. All of them were smiling. Written on the back was a short message. It said that many of those kids felt invisible. Many struggled with loneliness. Many believed nobody understood them. So he spent his evenings helping them discover what had taken him years to learn. That they mattered. That they belonged. That being different was not a flaw. And at the bottom, he added one final sentence. The sentence brought tears to my eyes. He wrote that the day someone told him maybe he just hadn't met the right person yet was the day his life began changing. Reading those words, I realized something beautiful. The greatest gift we can give another human being isn't money. It isn't success. It isn't perfection. It's presence. The willingness to stay. To listen. To understand. To believe in someone when they have stopped believing in themselves. Special request, comment below with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one caring person can completely transform someone's future. The world often celebrates the loudest voices, the biggest achievements, and the most visible successes. But sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is simply look at someone everyone else overlooks and say, "I see you." Because behind many quiet faces are untold stories. Behind many lonely hearts are invisible battles. And behind many people who believe nobody can stand them is someone who simply hasn't met the right friend yet. Corbin spent years thinking he was the problem. Years believing he was unworthy of connection. Years carrying loneliness like a permanent burden. But all it took was one friendship, one opportunity, and one decision not to give up for his story to change. And maybe that's true for someone watching right now. Maybe you're feeling overlooked. Misunderstood. Forgotten. Maybe you've convinced yourself that nobody cares. If that's you, remember this. Your story isn't finished. Your people may still be out there. Your place in this world still exists. And someday, when you least expect it, someone may walk into your life and remind you that you were never as alone as you thought. Thank you for spending time with this story. If it touched your heart, please engage with the video and share your thoughts below. Your comments may encourage someone who desperately needs hope today. And remember, kindness costs nothing, but for someone fighting a silent battle, it can mean absolutely everything. The end.